sixth time I'm doing this for my book Obligate Whisper. If you're joining me and if you're commenting and I'm reading my book, I apologize if I'm like oblivious to your comments, but so far that hasn't been a problem because nobody's really been tuning into this. So anyway, I'm gonna start with a little just noodling around like I usually do, and then we'll get right into the book. All right. Okay, so hopefully get all the microphone going here. Yeah, okay. I don't play a lot of guitar these days, so that's why I'm a little rusty. But you know what? Maybe, like all things, if I keep at it, maybe it'll get a little better. But let's get to a joke, and then a poem, and then I'll read Obligate Whisper. Here's a good joke. Hearing a scream from the playroom, the mother rushed in and found her infant son pulling the hair of his 4-year-old sister. After separating them, the mother said to her daughter, "Don't be upset with your brother, honey. He didn't know he was hurting you." No sooner had the mother returned to her chores than she heard more screaming. This time she rushed in and found the baby crying. "Now what happened?" she asked. "Nothing," said the girl, "except that now he knows." It wasn't a dirty joke this time. See, I read from my clean book. So, let's read a poem. This is called Poverty. And, hold on. There we get the microphone aimed a little better. It is the man let me start over. It is the man you've never seen who keeps you going, the one who might arrive someday. He isn't out on the streets or in the buildings or in the stadiums, or if he's there, I've missed him somehow. He isn't one of our presidents or statesmen or actors. I wonder if he's there. I walk down the streets past drugstores and hospitals and theaters and cafes, and I wonder if he's there. I've looked almost half a century, and he has not been seen. A living man, truly alive. Say, when he brings his hands down from lighting a cigarette, you see his eyes, like the eyes of a tiger staring past into the wind. But when the hands come down, it is always the other eyes that are always, 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 always there. And soon it will be too late for me, and I will have lived a life with drugstores, cats, sheets, saliva, newspapers, women, doors, and other assortments, but nowhere a living man. That's one of Charles Bukowski's earlier poems, from Burning in Water, Drowning in Flame. Okay, let's get down and get a whisper. It's 10 minutes to 7 Pacific time. Wait a minute. Oh my. All my clocks are battery operated. So, I don't know what clock to go by right now. I got a pocket watch it. Yeah, it's a little after 8. So that clock needs a new battery. It's about 5 after 8. And let's see how much we'll read tonight. Okay. I usually turn this off. And, okay, here we go. Bubblegum Whisper continuing. Okay. Huh, responded Harvey as the two left the coyote where they found him. Must have been the wind. A day later, the men with their adult toys and bounty were long gone. Blue Jay and her grandfather were again at the mouths of many shadowed caverns, crevices, and narrow doors carved by the wind. The Pueblos could have made their own kivas at such a place, Little Blue, if they were to have ever lived way out here. Elton started up a wind-manicured rock, easy for him to scale. He stood atop the boulder which stood on top of the first and called down to his captivated audience. In caves, little one, the seekers and the searchers meet their dreams head on. Head on. In caves, the shamans were initiated into the knowledge that separates these people from all others. Where the Pueblo Indians have their subterranean sanctuaries of stone, they still, to this day, keep some chambers alive where ritual and ceremony are still practiced. Wow, Blue Jay's response was genuine wonder. Her little dark-braided and loose-haired head craned back to notice the old man's silhouette framed by a blast of beams the afternoon sun was casting. In that brief moment, before Elton ventured further, she got goosebumps on her 8-year-old arms. She felt as though her loving grandfather was filled with Usen himself. But his returning crackling voice soon broke the spell. Go on now. It is good for us to be in these sacred places alone for a few moments. I'm going to climb up to that peak over there to see the view. You can explore these small caves. Just do not go inside them, granddaughter. We can learn much from the whistling winds and calm shadows here. I'll meet you in less than an hour, okay? Here, right here, Blue. He tossed to her a small modern pocket watch with LED lights and numbers. I have another one of those. I've set both to ring a tone in about 45 minutes. That'll tell you when to head back to this spot with the 4 rocks. Got it? Yes, grandfather, got it. And off they went in 2 separate directions, one higher, one low, and despite her grandfather's warning, deeper too. Blue Jay was having the time of her young life when what should she come across but a long wall deep within a shadowy, upended strata of a massive flat lode. Across its wide swath was a pristine pictograph, a petroglyph of a distant crescent moon with a 10-pointed star beside it and a sacred handprint above it. All were dark maroon in color, and though she could tell the images were ancient, she marveled how well preserved they were. Later on that late night at their hotel, Blue Jay described it to her grandfather. He told her it must have dated back to the 11th century. He had heard of others in the Chaco Canyon where it was guessed to be depicting the supernova of 1054 AD. The hand imprint told them it was a sacred spot. The 10-pointed star, the supernova, was at its brightest when its configuration was close to the moon, as in the pictograph. "Oh, how I wish I brought my camera," she said to herself as she slowly walked further down the wall after placing her small hand over the petroglyph hand. I'm not going too far inside," she whispered to nobody. Now she felt like a wise one about to tap into and learn from the old and mystic ways. She felt like someone chosen, someone rather special, and she was secretly thanking her grandfather for trusting her with this alone time, this exploration time. Somewhere higher up on a ridge of this great butte, her old relative was sitting and singing chants to his creator and to the ancients, his father and his father's father, and all the fathers and mothers that came before him. Elton knew he was getting older, and though he quit smoking 6 years prior, he still harbored the occasional hacking smoker's cough. He was in fine health at 74 years, but never knew when time and a hard life would catch up with him, and so he looked to the future. "Giver of life, I come to you looking west, where soon your sun will be sitting and setting another day. You have taught my people well. You provided herbs to attack the diseases when they attacked us. You showed us where to find these herbs. You gave us a climate with the ways to find clothing and shelter. We have always held the West you gave us with a deep sense of belonging. This is our home. I am teaching my granddaughter the old ways as best I can, of the sun, the sky, the moon, the stars, the clouds, and the storms. Just as my mother taught me to kneel and pray, I am doing my best to teach little Blue Jay. I am teaching her to pray to you, Usen, for strength, for health, wisdom, and protection. Just as our esteemed leader Geronimo's mother taught him, and my mother taught me. I know, too, to teach her to never pray against any person. I know you do not care for the petty quarrels and jealousies of men. I know we have much to be thankful for despite our hardships. Protect us from harm, O great Usen. Protect our people. We have had it hard. We have a strong spirit, thanks to you. We have not given sway to human nature, and we have not been cruel as our enemies have been cruel to us. Protect your precious creatures, from the least to the greatest. Heal the lonely, the hungry, the sick. Help me train this child I've been given in trust from you and the fates. Help me make her into someone her people will be proud of and someone many will look up to as she matures. I must go now, for the time to gather my old wings around her has come. Thank you for listening to me, Asajj. While Elton ended his songs and prayer, Blue Jay was sitting amongst a pile of stones and rocks, still in her sacred place along the narrow wall crevice. She could see beyond some round rocks that there were deep holes and possible caves, way too small for her to venture into, however. She got comfortable on a small, smooth boulder and began to flick small stones into these pitch-black holes, testing her pitching arm and to test her accuracy. Bored with that, she laid back on her long, flat bed and soaked in what late sun found its way to her resting place. Closing her eyes, the 45-minute beeps woke her from the short nap, and she pushed her torso up with her skinny arms. She looked down at her legs, and beside them were what appeared to be the same stones she tossed into the tiny crevices. That's weird, she said slowly to herself. I didn't have any more stones with me that I can remember. Just then a small pebble landed at her feet, hitting her tennis shoe. What? She sat frozen, her arm supporting her torso while she looked up, squinting at the walls above her and onto the sky. Another small stone was sent flying in her direction, this one landing by her side. This time she saw the direction that the rock came from. Someone or something is throwing these stones at me, she thought. Yet another tiny rock popped out, and then everything went silent until about 2 minutes passed. She decided to toss one back again, aiming for the hole she saw the last one fly out of. Bingo, she murmured. She waited, and sure enough, the exact same small pebble came spiraling back at her. She had to duck to avoid getting ticked in her head. Throwing another one in, it too came back within about 30 seconds. Another, and the same thing. She started to giggle, wondering what kind of animal would be playing such a game. Blue Jay! Blue Jay, knife feather! Her grandfather was beginning to worry as she was now 15 minutes late from the alarm. She wanted to shout back she was coming, but she didn't want to risk scaring away whatever prairie dog, kit fox, or other timid creature she might be playing catch with. Sucking up some courage, she was determined to find out what kind of animal was doing this strange ritual with her. She got on her hands and knees and crawled as close to the dark opening as she could without losing her footing for fear of falling into the tight abyss or getting caught in its narrow door. Blue Jay, come, child. There was a sad desperateness to the old man's tone now, and she knew she had to give up her quest. Just as she was about to stand and shout back to her grandfather, she caught the briefest second of the hugest eyes she had ever seen, dark as pools of ebony, shiny as black pearls, peeking out the edge of the opening, blinking quickly, and then just as fast as the blink, darting back down deep and away, it went into the darkness. She could hear some stones make a minuscule avalanche as the creature disappeared for good. What in the world was that? She said, and got back up on her boulder. I'm coming, grandfather, she yelled. Regretfully, she made it past the long wall, past the pictograph, and made it back to her relieved grandparent. Blue Jay, child, you're late. I was getting worried. I'm sorry, grandfather. I was having such a good time. She told him about the petrography finds and the petroglyphs. She then started to tell him about the mysterious rock thrower and what she thought she saw, the large, dark, blinking eyes, like no other creature she had ever seen or was aware of. But she cut herself short, thinking her family might think she was nuts. The secret experience haunted her, though, and it would for almost 4 more decades of her life. They shared a room that night with 2 separate beds in a humble but comfortable hotel, just like Elton promised, complete with a small, beautiful aqua blue outdoor kidney-shaped swimming pool. It was 9 o'clock when Elton turned out the nightstand light. "You know," he said as he climbed under his covers, "our ancestors were out there with us today, little Jay. They are part of the rocks, the trees, the mountains, and even the wind. You do know, Blue Jay, our women hold great leadership roles amongst the Apache. When you are about to become a woman, we all will celebrate your power in the sunrise dance when you will get ready for your adult life and motherhood, should that be something that you desire. You can seek out spiritual aid and comfort from the supernatural powers that are all around us daily. Usun will see to it that you are protected from evil and people with ill intent. The spirits, too, will help you. Holos, the Apache name for sun, will guide your steps, and Bu, the Apache name for owl, your dreams." Blue Jay stared from the darkness of their room out into the parking lot where a blinking neon sign read Arrowhead Inn glowed softly like a surreal blue, red, and yellow angel upon the furniture of the humble room. "Grandfather," she spoke, "I think I may have seen an owl today." "Oh? Was it a burrowing owl? They might be out here. They take up underground, you know. They live where there are abandoned prairie dog holes. Not as many around as when I was your age, but they're still out here." "Did you know they can imitate a rattler's rattle to ward off predators?" Elton was always teaching Blue Jay about New Mexico's wildlife. "No, this one had much bigger eyes." Now Elton stared out at the neon-lit sign. "Not sure, then. Desert horned owl? No, not out this way. How big were these eyes?" This is when Blue Jay changed the subject, for she knew in her heart it was no owl. She was hoping against hope she might get a hint of what it was she saw from her wise patriarch. "It doesn't matter. I barely saw it, really." Now Elton's love for birds couldn't rest. "Barn? A barn owl? No." Elton paused in his almost sleep state. Sometimes it's more fun not knowing." Blue Jay looked over to the dark silhouette of her granddad, while the neon flicker glow made a ghostly effect on him. "Yeah." He sniffed a breath of awareness and talked some more. "I saw some coyotes sniffing around the shadows not far from where you were, child. I didn't worry, though. They would never attack someone as big and strong and brave as you are, dear Blue Jay bird." Blue Jay smiled in the dark void of hotel smells. "They seemed agitated, I must add, though, Blue. Jumpy, sniffing around with purpose and nervousness." "The spirits you tell me of, Grandfather, the spirits, maybe they were tuning into them." "Perhaps," Elton answered. Baya, which is the Apache word for coyote, was always the trickster in our culture. Our lore. Have you heard the tale of how Coyote brought us fire? No, and I'm not very tired. I'd love to hear it. I have to pee, then I'll tell you. Elton stumbled and he found the bathroom switch. While waiting, Blue Jay allowed her thoughts to return to the rock tosser. An owl wouldn't be able to do that. Not even a horned owl, not even a coyote or a mountain lion. Wait, maybe a mountain lion? No. You still awake, Jay? The older I get, the weaker the dam gets. I'm awake. Okay, then. Elton settled the back of his head into his pillow. He drew his blankets to his chin and began to tell Blue Jay the ancient Apache story, how Coyote obtained fire. Long time ago, there was no fire. But there were a tiny few who had some fire. We call them flies today. If you think of an ordinary housefly, they were the ones who had the fire. It is said fire existed wherever flies were. One night, the flies held a ceremony. And who should invite himself to this special formality but Coyote? In the middle of their pageantry, Coyote began to trot this way and that way, over to the left, over to the right, much like you see him trot around the deserts and mountains today. But on this occasion, his trot turned into a dance. And every time he danced close to the inner circle of flies where the fire was, he'd poke his tail into it. He did this over and over amongst the buzzing rhythm and chanting and beating of wings of the flies. Grandfather, could Coyote throw things? What? Throw things? What do you mean? Could he toss things like we can, balls, rocks, and things? Chuckled the elder. You know, I never thought about that before, but I suppose he could. I mean, if he could dance, I don't see why he couldn't play a game of catch. I was just wondering. Elton smiled as he tried to remember where he had left off in the tale. Now, where was I? Oh, yes. Coyote kept dancing. I think he may have even picked up some sticks and threw them into the flames just to make the ceremony even more dramatic. Finally, the flies couldn't take the suspense any longer. Friend, they said, your tail is going to burn if you keep that up. Let it burn, Coyote laughed, and just then he placed his entire tail into the fire and kept it there. What does it matter? He said further, while smiling at all the thousands of little astonished compound eyes. Blue Jay giggled. By now the fire was flaring up under his tail. Concerned for the crazy wild dog, the flies began to swarm into a circle around Coyote. This made Coyote leap from amongst the flies over and away from them until he was running at a very fast pace. The fire was burning brightly on his entire tail now, and the flies chased after him. Coyote kept running until he met up with Eagle. Here, he said to Eagle, spinning around so his burning tail was in front of Eagle. Eagle let out a loud screech and lifted his mighty wings into the air just as they caught on fire. From that place, Eagle took to the air and scattered fire all over amongst our mountains. Fire was burning in every direction. The flies scattered everywhere and tried their best to put out the fire, but they weren't able to. Then things got even worse. Coyote was helped by the blowing of the wind, causing the fire to burn on and on and on. Now it was impossible to control. And this little one is how fire came into existence. Blue Jay yawned. Oh, what a wonderful story, Grandfather. What a dramatic way fire came into our world, all because of that tricky old coyote. Elton chuckled. If you're not too tired, the story doesn't end there, Bluebird. Oh, no, please tell me the rest. Okay, almost done. I heard my little coyote pup yawn. He cleared his throat. From that time on, the flies felt hurt and betrayed by Coyote. Some even say in some circles they hated Coyote. And they said this to him. They said, the stones, the earth, the water, let them all become hot for him. And that is exactly what happened next. Coyote began dashing around and around in circles, for everything became hot for him. The heat of the sun became too much for his thick fur, and the stones beneath his feet made him dance like a madman. He ran away, but now running got him nowhere, for the heat followed him. The desert was scorching at every turn. He kept running until he found a pond of water. This pond also used to be cool, Coyote said to himself, and he jumped into the water that laid before him. All who witnessed this heard a hissing noise come from his body. And right then and there, he was boiled alive. Elton paused a moment to let the significance sink in. Now, at this time, anything that anyone said about someone else, that thing would happen exactly as the person saying it. So you see, just as the flies said Coyote would suffer, so Coyote did. And at that time, anything of which one said, it is to happen so, it would happen in just that way. If a person spoke in that kind of way to someone he or she hated, it happened in exactly the way he or she said it would. And it is for that reason one did not say just anything to someone. They spoke only in a good way. Coyote died? Asked Blue Jay under her breath. All I know is he was boiled. He shows up again in so many stories. My guess is he is still alive today, little one. But the lesson is one which governs the Apache way and always throughout our history. This same belief to only speak in a very good way is taught amongst us, especially from our women, our beloved mothers and grandmothers. Apache means enemy in some tongues, but Blue Jay to us it means the people. If an Apache curses and wishes ill to another shortly before some disaster occurs to the one upon whom the malediction falls, the person who spoke so recklessly and impulsively will be considered a witch by many and may find himself in deep, deep trouble. The flies, I wonder if they felt bad, said Blue Jay. I do not know. That is the mystery of such lessons. But now even I am tired, and I usually have insomnia this early. Usen was kind to us today, Blue Jay Knife Feather. I got to watch our sun set like your supernova, and you very possibly set your eyes on the very spirit of Coyote within those unknown rocks. Coyote may have been a troublemaker, Grandfather, but without him, fire would have never come into existence. Some things like fire are such a responsibility, Blue Jay. Even our bravest coyotes can jump into its power and never recover. But Coyote resurfaces. Coyote learns from his mistakes. You dream now. I dream now. Good night. That's the end of chapter 5. I'm going to continue with chapter 6 in just a moment, but I want to light this. I love little gizmos like lights and things. I just want my little Christmas light to burn there. It's always Christmas here. You can't even see that. Oh well. I can. Chapter 6, The Bats. When we show respect for other living things, they show respect for us. Arapaho proverb. Moontree was listening to the youngest of the Wagdigger girls, Owllight, as she giggled, relaying to her parents the episode she had just shared with a, quote, tall, tan girl, unquote, from the outside world. Melisma, her mother, began chiding the little if harshly, warning with no words restrained just how dangerous such a stunt could be. Moontree placed his hand on Melisma's shoulder, interrupting her escalating tone. Owllight, he said, looking directly at the small child, did this being see you at all while tossing the stones back her way? Oh, no, Moontree, I was being very careful. Because, he continued, what is worrying your mother, well, what is worrying everybody, is if these peoples get a good hard look at any one of us, things could get very serious. Can you understand that word, serious? Owllight nodded her head slowly, staring at the older If Scout with respect. I know you meant no harm. And for all we know, this girl of the tall ones could have been a kinder one. And yet, from what the elders tell us, many, many of them are dangerous. Very, very dangerous. One innocent girl telling one very, very dangerous tall one, and then that tall one tells another dangerous tall one. And well, our lives could be like a Mother Earth heart attack suddenness, be popped away. Owllight, I didn't mean to scare you like a bully, but they do have these poppers, killing wands, and they do bad, very bad things. He was about to tell her of the murdered coyote, but he could already tell he was scaring her more than he wished to. 2 tears rolled down from each of the little girl's eyes. I'm sorry, Moontree. I'm so sorry, Mother and Father. Please. I am so sorry. I was just lonely and I couldn't sleep. And she looks so nice and pretty and harmless. I was just trying to be friendly. Heartbeat, her father Fenright interjected. I am so proud of you and your good heart. I am also proud of how smart your mind is. You knew enough to stay hidden. It's just that from now on, at least until we reach this Carlsbad place, we have to stay more than hidden. We have to be peeped away, and when someone makes a noise, we have to hope they think it was one of our salamanders or a sleepless bat friend. Don't feel bad, but just keep what Moontree has taught you today. Keep it in your heart of hearts, my heart. He is a tried scout, and they know so much more about these peoples than even your mother or I do. I will stay away, Father, she sniffled, wiping away her tears. I will stay away from them. Owllight, Moontree said in a hushed tone. Who knows what the future holds? This is why we spy and scout. Rune and I are always looking for reasons to believe these beings are changing for the better. We're headed closer to their civilization just by moving to the larger caves. We'll be able to observe them, eavesdrop on them like we were never able to in the hoodoos. Maybe someday we can talk to them and play pebble games. But first things first, right, Heartshake? First things first, Owlite said, giving Moontree and her parents a weak smile. Did you ever hit her head? It was Rune, who had just entered their small makeshift room. Almost twice, the 10-year-old grinned. Many generations ago, when the bats first made friends with the Ifs, there was a colony in central New Mexico, a colony of several thousand Townsend big-eared bats. I have a model of one right here. I don't know if you can barely see it. I'll zoom in on that someday. Tokmas was the leader captain of this colony, which was just getting adapted to the inner-ground nocturnal life. The Townsend big-eared bat is a medium-sized bat, 7 to 12 Gs, with very long, flexible ears. Its total length is around 4 inches, its tail being around 2 inches, and its wingspan about 11 inches. This species is a whisper bat, which means that it echolocates at a much lower intensity than other bats, and it is very difficult for man to record. This may be in part because this species specializes on moths, and some moths have the ability to hear bats, so they may produce their own noises to jam a bat's echolocation in an effort to thwart predation. Echolocation, also known as biosonar, is the biological sonar used by many bat species. They emit calls out to the environment and listen to the echoes of those calls, which return from various objects near them. They use these echoes to locate and identify the objects. Echolocation is used for navigation and for foraging or hunting in various environments. They rely mainly on echolocation, but they lack the large noses some microbats have to improve the ultrasound beam, and instead shout through their open mouths to project their ultrasound beams. In compensation, these bats have relatively large ears. Let's see if I can see the large ears? Here. Alrighty. A rival bat species, the Mexican free-tailed bats, lived nearby, and their captain's name was Noon Moon. Just as the moths might try to jam the signals of the Townsends, the Mexicans, too, sent out jamming ultrasonic vocalizations whenever they encountered their nearby cousins in their own area preying on moths. The Mexican free-tailed bat's jamming call led to an increased chance of their rival missing the targets, which the Mexican free-tailed bat was then able to eat without competition. To say the least, Tokmas was rather distressed with his neighbor colony and their interferences. So, rather than confront Noon Moon, he decided a mediator was needed. Bozagian Webb was the captain of their newfound If friends, who were in fact just beginning to model themselves after the bat's way for living in the deepest caves as a means for safety. Bozagian, said Tokmas, you are friends to both the Townsends and the Mexicans, and I must ask you about a problem we have been having with them today. Bozagian and Tokmas were in a cave room rather far from the main cave entrances. It was getting dark. Tokmas hung from the wall while Bozagian sat on a rock stool. The If's eyesight was still getting used to, adapting to, the darkness at this stage in their evolution. But Bozajian could understand every high-pitched sound and word from the small bat's mouth. When bats fly, they issue a continuous stream of high-pitched sounds at the rate of about 30 per second. The frequency of these sounds start at approximately 30,000 cycles, the extreme upper limit of human hearing, and ranges upward to 60,000 cycles. The squeaking of a roosting bat is at a much lower frequency and easily discernible to the human ear. If a bat picks up an echo from one of its sounds, it instantly speeds up the rate of discharge until the signals are coming at 40 to 60 per second. The pattern formed by the echoes tells the bat of obstacles, their size, shape, and location. Bats can thus easily locate their prey, night-flying insects as well. "What is it?" Bozajian inquired, concerned, for up until then, all three tribes lived peacefully with one another. "It is Noon Moon and his insect hunters. They are interrupting our calls just so they can swoop in and catch the moths we work so hard at hunting. It has left me with my big ears in a knot. How could they have become so rude and ruthless?" Bozajian's relationship with the Mexican free-tailed bats was just blossoming, and many of their families were now beginning to settle within their own caves. They were neighbors, and they shared a love for peace and safety. He was at a loss for what to say, and so he told Takmas he would speak to Noon Moon the next day. It's all he could promise. When Bozajian stepped outside the next morning, for in those days humans were not as populated and their threats were less frequent, he walked over to the main caverns where he was aware of where Noon Moon slept. "Noon Moon, can we counsel?" Soon the rapid and near-quiet flaps of Noon Moon's leathery wings settled on a wall near the entrance only a few feet away from Bozajian. "Yeah, I was napping. We filled our tum-tums last night. We are getting ready for the winter migration." I know. You all need that extra fat for your long flight," Bozajian acknowledged. He sighed a deep, soft sigh and went straight to the difficult topic. "You know our neighbors, the big-eared ones?" "Oh, yes," Noon Moon chirped. "What a fine use of their calls they have, sending them out so softly the moths cannot evade them." "Well, yes, that's what I'm here about. Takmas. Takmas tells me you and many of your night hunters have been doing to them what the moths try to do to us." "What? Scramble them?" Noon Moon laughed. "Why, yes. Yes, of course we do. You ever see how those whisperers get away with so much of the moths while our brothers and sisters are left spinning in circles? We may be the fastest around here, but we're no match for them when we're hungry for moths, especially so close to winter now." Bozajian knew about the larger ears, the subtler calls, the more effective ways the Townsends had with the moths. But it made no matter, new neighbors or not, he had to speak his mind. "But Noon Moon, we are all blessed by the Creator with different gifts. You freetails are like shooting night lines," which is an If slang for shooting stars, "when it comes to catching the squiggly things. They have their abilities to capture the moths. Why can't we all just do what we do best and hope by night's end our turns are filled? Our tum-tums are filled." Noon Moon's cave was not doing as well as Takmas' cave, and though he knew what Bozajian was telling him was a proper and moral caution, he answered, "Bozajian, it's not like we're starting some kind of war. It's not like we're trying to make enemies of neighbors we hardly know. It's just sounds." It's just some here, some there, so we don't have to survive on merely mosquitoes, wasps, and ants until winter. Bozajian thought for a moment. You catch quite a few dragonflies and flies, don't you? A few of our specialties. What if you used your speed to help the big ears, and they used their quiet shouts to help you? I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, instead of scrambling, try some gambling. Share with them what they have difficulty catching. And maybe, just maybe, they will return the favor with moth gifts. Noon Moon saw some merit in the easing of tensions between the rivals, and so later that evening he tried Bozajian's counsel by seeking out Takmas. After a brief search, he found him in his favorite haunt, where the moon often intensified in a light off the reflection of a small desert oasis pond. Takmas was speaking softly to a large, fluttering, slowly moving moth. When he turned to see Noon Moon staring at him, he immediately flew into a rage. "Whatever's in that tricky little mind of yours, Noon Moon, go away! I'll not have you steal this one from me. He's mine." Noon Moon zipped over to Takmas in frenetic flight. Clutched between Noon Moon's two sharp-clawed feet was the fattest, the juiciest, most colorful dragonfly Takmas had ever seen. Noon Moon quickly released the wounded insect into the air as it spiraled to the ground. "Catch it, and then get that moth too. Compliments of the Mexicans." And just as quickly he sped off to rejoin his comrades. What slowly transpired over the next several months and years even was a fellowship between not only the two rival bat species, but with Bozajian and his If clan as well. They all looked out for each other from those days onward, for they all knew they shared common enemies and threats, much more menacing than their little dietary needs and desires. They shared many things now. Only in this one northwestern area of the New Mexico desert could spectacles of bats dropping wounded or dead insects to one another under the stars would be witnessed. But that, of course, was only if you were an If. The bats who joined the Ifs on their journey in 1989 were primarily Mexican freetails. There were a few who were Townsend big ears still around from the Takmas line, but they were mostly dispersed over the decades. The Mexican freetail bats had learned much from the Ifs. They developed 15 different types of social calls, and they learned to adjust these calls to avoid interfering with other bats within range of their shout-outs. But the Ifs learned so much more from the bats. Once a bond of trust had been fostered, a sharing of more than just insects took place in those dark, hidden caves. The bats taught the Ifs the beauty of the evening hours. They taught them that there was always more than one way to see. They taught them that in silence you can eat. In silence you can sleep. And that to be safe, you can leave the daylight to the humans. As the ifs learned to make the sounds needed to communicate in the bats' language, the bats returned the honor by also teaching them how to use echolocation. The ifs' minds and spirits were so sensitive they were able to mimic many things from the influences of their environments. But mimicking wasn't exactly what happened. They learned to see things with their ears. The old expression, blind as a bat, is probably one of the worst examples of a dictum gone wrong. Not only can bats see and hear with their sensitive ears and ability to echolocate, their eyes are keen as any humans. Actually, they're even better. A lot of people don't know that. But it is their ability to echolocate that is truly nothing short of amazing. Just as the ifs from children to the grandparents were able to speak batese in the highest pitches no humans could hear, much less produce, most of them learned to shout similar sounds and tones against objects they're rapidly let me start over. Most of them learned to shout similar sounds and tones against objects their rapidly improving eyes could not decipher. Their ears, which were difficult to perceive on their smooth, amphibian-like skin, were becoming as keen as their night vision. Every time now, when they shot a high-pitched sound toward an object, they would hear that sound bounce back to their inculcated eardrums, enabling them to navigate about or toward that object, like a bat. Some got so good they could describe in detail things in their way, what would have been guesses in the dark before. And this did come in handy in the caves, for oftentimes even an if could open her eyes and see nothing but the pitchiest of blacks. Another invaluable lesson the bats taught the ifs was patience. When a Mexican flew back to his or her pitch, let me start over. I think I'm getting tired. And I'll close off soon. When a Mexican flew back to his or her pitch around 4 a.m. or so, he simply knew it was time to rest up for the next night, upside down. She knew there wasn't a lot for a bat to do in the dark during the day, but procreate and shit. And even the ifs were aware how special and ecologically divine bat guano was. So rest became a skill for all of them, bat and if. Though the ifs were prone to joke and storytell and sing songs, when the bat slept, when stirring of wings lessened, they encouraged all to follow suit. Daytime became a time to meditate. Meditate in the dark. The silences of the darknesses. It was a time to rest and to dream. The time of night became an instructor, for that is when, in the hushed silence, some would speak softly of other times. For those who would listen, especially the children, both bat and if, that is when they would speak of memories of sunshine and birds, of memories with the native peoples and the great multi-species powwows and the wows of the planet. All were a family of. They were grateful to the Creator for showing them by means of another creature just how unlonely their memories could be in present time. Tulip, tulip. Tulip, tulip, hey. Children. How untired their dreams could yet shape them. The bats never changed their routine. They never complained. Their nurseries were full of babies, millions of babies, who would eventually take to flight with them when dusk beckoned. The sense of community was strong, so strong the darkness would never beat them down again. And the ifs, though far less in number, gathered strength from their example. That's the end of chapter 6. And I think I've been talking about 50 minutes or something like that. I might as well start chapter 7, Bernie and Suzanne, next week. Okay. And I hope you enjoyed this reading. I will post it since there were I don't think anybody came in. I will post it, so it'll be here for people to listen to if they feel like it. You can get the hardcover. Well, you can get all my stuff. I always say go to lulu.com to get the hardcover, go to Amazon to get the paperback, but it's just better to go to gullarudbooks.com because all the links are there. I got buttons that'll take you to each thing. All my books are there. And I hope you enjoyed this. And the glowing Christmas tree and the what do you call these things? I'm tired. Okay. Good night. Oh, I got a thumb up. Looks like somebody was out there. Whoever you are, if you were texting me, I'm sorry if I missed you. I think somebody gave me a thumb up. I'm trying to see. I'm still getting used to this. Oh, there it is. I got to hit this thing here. Good night. Good night. Good night.